Yeah, he was subtly succeeding towards the end. He basically built himself this machine, pretty much had, especially in the final episode, was a step ahead of the freedom fighters. Captured most of the allies, like Loop and Ari. Basically made Sonic and the freedom fighters realize that they had been duped. That he had basically had planned for this, because their plan was blown from the moment they got there. This is basically story writing 101. In some sense. It's basically you get to the finale of something, but you want to get people's attention. You want to leave them wanting more. And basically by doing that, you make the villain, the antagonist, look badass in that finale, so that finally people's attentions will be given. I mean, ever since it was mentioned in the episode The Void, if you will, in the episode The Void, okay, people's attention was kept. They kept wondering exactly how big of a threat this situation was. And as we got into what I consider the saga, or if you piece it together very carefully, the movie itself, you kept wondering and wondering and wondering. I mean, heck, they allowed him to achieve success by getting one of the Power Stones. They allowed him to kind of have a moral victory due to the fact that Uncle Chuck could not return, even though he found out Uncle Chuck was a spy. And still knew about it, because basically he launched a week earlier than what was planned. So basically, again, in a sense, it's story writing, script writing 101. It's basically you're building up your antagonist, your villain, whether it's an antagonist or villain that's, doing things against the will, like say Sally is in her mecha form, or not. It's basically story writing 101. You see, when you get toward the end of something, you want the villain to come out strong. You don't want to end the story arc by doing the same stuff over and over again and making them weak, and thus not allowing them to be taken seriously. This, again, folks, is story writing 101. I mean, you want a good example as well? Power Rangers. Take a look at Power Rangers, for goodness sake. Alright? Take a look at Power Rangers. We ended Power Rangers Mighty Morphin on a cliffhanger by making the villains look badass. Because one, they blew up the command center, and thus it looked like they destroyed the powers forever. Same thing going into the ninja season of Mighty Morphin. They were made to look badass. You know what I'm saying? Basically, it's story writing 101. When you get to the end of a story arc that's been arcing for that entire season, you want to make the villains look like a legitimate threat. You don't always want to make them look like they're complete failures. And everybody listening to this knows that is true. They know that is fact. You don't always want your villains to look pathetic. You want them to look strong. You want them to be taken seriously. And even if you have to wait to the conclusion of the story arc to make it happen, so be it. Because one of the questions a lot of fans are going to have about these villains is, when are they going to be taken seriously? When are they going to be shown that they're badass? And that, again, is story writing 101. In my opinion. you basically wait until the end. Everybody knows that. It's kind of like when you put together a movie. Alright, you put together a movie. A movie essentially is like the final episodes of a season, of a story arc for a season. You have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in that middle, you're basically made to think that the antagonist is going to win. That they're going to be the badass, the unstoppable. That no matter what the hero does, they cannot stop them until the end. It's basically, again folks, and I know I sound like a broken record here, it's storytelling 101. I mean, I can understand there's a lot of you out there that feel as though that's not really the case. And you know what? You might be right. That might not be the case. But you know what? Maybe it is. You see, V-295, Jonathan 83X, anybody else listening, yes, Sally at times, maybe in your opinion, in her mecha form, or in your opinions, and probably in the opinions of others, probably looked like she was being treated as pathetic. Like she wasn't being seen as a viable threat. But yet, now, in this final, in 247, she was. Again, it's because they're going by that old story writing deal of waiting until the finale to make the villain look like a viable threat. Because they know, it doesn't matter if it's television, doesn't matter if it's comics, doesn't matter if it's movies, novels, you name it. Live action, animation, doesn't matter. If you have an antagonist that constantly loses throughout the season, or has a little small victory here and there, but mostly loses, the people that produce, that direct, that film, that write, that draw those story arcs, they're going to know that fans are going to be asking when that villain's going to be taken seriously. When are they going to be treated as a viable threat? That's what they're going to do. I mean, that's what they know fans are going to do. They're going to ask that. So, what they do is that because they know this, they wait until the right opportunity to finally make them look badass. And that, believe it or not, is what Ian Flynn, whether you like the guy or not, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with his methods or not, that's what Ian Flynn did here. He waited to the conclusion, or at least the cliffhanger issue, to make Sally, in her mecha form, look badass. Because it keeps you guessing, it makes you wonder throughout this whole late spring, summer crossover, it makes you wonder whether or not, or makes you wonder and ask what's going to happen next when we get to 252. See what I'm saying? I know some of you, again, may not agree with what I'm saying here. But it's true. It's true. It's the old formula of any kind of media. It is. And again, you may not agree with it. There's probably a lot of people that don't agree with it, but that's fine. That is fine. You have your opinions. I mean, if V-295, Jonathan 83X, if you will, and several others out there want to believe and speculate that off-panel, Eggman basically gutted Sally, carved her up, took half her brain out because he wanted to weaponize her, then that's their opinion. That's their right to speculate. They have the right to speculate that. That's their opinion. However, people also have the right to speculate and say that we don't know that. I mean, I basically am one of those that have said that we don't know that. And I firmly believe that it was just armor added onto her and weapons placed in her without any removal. And even if he did what many speculate he did, usually from what I have read and known as a fan and seen as a fan, he usually shuts down the machine, the bot, before he does anything. The point is, folks, we can speculate all we want on certain things, and we have the right and opinion to do that. We have the right to do that. That's because it's our opinion. And if we feel that way, we feel that way. If we don't, so be it. But the truth of the matter is this. The truth of the matter is this. No matter what we think or how we feel, no matter whether we agree with what V-295 said here or not, the fact of the matter is, what's happening right now, or what's happened in the recent issue, is basically classic storytelling 101. Think of it again, using the examples that I said of Saturday AM and Power Rangers. Take a look at those examples, if you will. And you'll kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about. Basically by the fact that when you get to the end of a finale, and you want to end it, and you're ending part of that finale, that first part, on a cliffhanger, and by doing so, you're finally making your viable threat, your viable antagonist, whether they're willing or not. If you're finally making them a threat, then that gets people's attention and it gets them talking. You're basically also answering the question that many fans have. When are you going to make that person, that villain, that antagonist, willing or not, a viable threat to the heroes or to the protagonists? When are you going to do that? And Ian Flynn basically did that here. He answered that question. So that is just my response in this second part to this entry by V-295 of As Strong as the Plot Demands. So that's all I'm going to say on it. Let me know what you guys think down below. Take your time in watching this if you will. And I'll talk to you later. God bless. Take care.